Well, we're now joined by Israel's ambassador to Canada Iddo Moed. Ambassador, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Obviously, I want to begin right now with the situation in Gaza because, as you know, there is right now an international call, our Prime Minister among them, many voices calling for the creation of a humanitarian corridor to get provisions of food, water, medicine to Palestinian people who had nothing to do with the Hamas attack. Is Israel responding to that? Will Israel respond to that?
Israel is responding to this incessant attack by Hamas terrorist organization against its population. As we speak, rockets keep being fired at Tel Aviv and other centers of population, at hospitals, at other places. But Israel is, of course, trying to also make sure that those who are not involved in combat, those who are not part of the Hamas terror infrastructure, are not being harmed. Therefore, we have tried to create passages for Palestinians, first of all, to move from the northern part of Gaza, which is targeted because that's where the center point of the Hamas terrorist organization is centered amongst the population. So we try to remove the population and encourage them to move southwards, and also to create from the south, coming from the Egyptian border, some humanitarian corridors to allow for aid to come in. We are very much aware of the international community's efforts in that regard, but we also ask the international community to consider the humanitarian situation of the hostages, of the 199, that's the number that we have at the moment, hostages that are being held in who knows what kind of conditions, in tunnels and wherever, by Hamas terrorists. I think that the international community should also call immediately and unconditionally for the release of these hostages.
I completely understand Israel's desire to end the Hamas threat once and for all. But as you say that, as you know, according to numbers, and this is from authorities in Gaza, more than 2,700 people have been killed. They say a quarter of those have been children. Can you really move into Gaza without harming innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the Hamas attack?
We are trying. The difference between Israel and Hamas is that Hamas puts their civilians as human shields in harm's way, and Israel is trying to get civilians out of harm's way. It's as simple as that. I wouldn't know about the numbers, but I have seen pictures of Israeli children that were killed by Hamas in information that was provided by Palestinians. So I wouldn't know about those numbers, but I would certainly try to verify them. Whatever the number is, casualties are casualties, and we are trying to make sure that they are as minimal as possible. However, we are fighting a war. And in a war, you wouldn't say to the United States, stop the war on September the 12th, 2001, after the bombing of the Twin Towers. So at the same time here, we have to wage this war against Hamas incessantly, fully, and make sure that their infrastructure is eradicated and they don't pose a threat to Israel anymore.
What does that mean, though? Does that mean a ground invasion where you destroy the infrastructure in the northern part of Gaza and then leave, or does that mean a reoccupation of the territory?
It means to do whatever it takes to remove that threat. We've had in the past some rounds of shootings, and they were contained some way or another. But what has happened now is completely different scale. The number of Israeli casualties is beyond the 5,000. If you count the dead and the wounded, it's incredible. It's a number that we cannot still digest. It's just unimaginable. So what we want to make sure is that there is no Hamas infrastructure, there is no Hamas threat against Israel anymore. And we'll do whatever it takes to eradicate it.
You know, I'm asking about Gaza right now, but you turn it back to the situation in Israel. So do tell us a bit about how the attack affected the Israeli people and continues to affect the Israeli people.
Israel is in a sort of a trauma right now. When you talk to people, everybody's pitching in, everybody's fighting together, everybody's helping everybody, religious or not religious, Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, Arabs, Muslims, Christians, everybody's helping everybody. Because we have to remember that the victims in this war on the Israeli side were also all kinds of people from all around the world, by the way, 42 countries. So we are in it together. Whether there are differences, maybe there are differences of opinion, that's all disappeared. We know that this is a war that we have to survive and win. And we will win because we are very strong. But the price is going to be high, most probably. We've paid already a very high price. We want to make sure that it ends there, and this has to end right now.
Well, certainly the Prime Minister of this country says Israel has the right to defend itself. Joe Biden, the U.S. President, went even further by saying in an interview that aired last night that Israel has the right to defend itself against what he described as evil. But that said, given that innocence will be, and the euphemism is collateral damage in any ground invasion, are you worried about losing international support?
Our concern is to eliminate the threat against Israeli population, against Israeli territory. We are at war. This is what concerns us right now. This is what Prime Minister also made clear to everybody in his statements, Prime Minister Netanyahu, and this is what's on our minds right now. We have the international support. We have a very broad support. We have very strong support and solid support from our friend and ally, Canada, and we appreciate that very much. And we know we are fighting a right and just war because it is against evil. Just imagine what has happened, and I don't want to go into graphics, but it's horrifying. And so it's not a war against Palestinians. It's a war against a terrorist organization that has become a monster, that has used the funds and the resources that were allocated for the people of Gaza to build a huge and most fatal machine to kill people indiscriminately. And it actually poses a threat to all of us, because when you talk about the incitement and the hatred and the brainwashing that those terrorists endured at some point in their lives, you get to understand that to create such monsters takes a long time. And something went completely wrong in the work that has been done with the Gaza Strip, because the population there does not support Hamas, but doesn't have any choice. They were just abducted by Hamas in their own way, as perhaps people in Israel. But when you look at the Israeli hostages that are being held there, and you know the atrocities that took place under the hands of these monsters in Israel, our immediate focus is to the immediate release of the hostages, and I think that all governments around the world should also call for that right now.
Are you at all concerned that by moving into Gaza, you may create a wider conflict? And by that, I'm thinking about Hezbollah, because they've already started their own actions along the northern border of Israel because of what is happening currently.
I have to look at it from a broader perspective about when we talk about Hezbollah, because both Hamas and Hezbollah are somehow connected, not just by their desire to destroy Israel, but by the fact that there is most probably another country behind them that provides them with munitions, that provides them with guidance and technologies, and actually plays a very dangerous game in the whole Middle East region. So when a foreign minister of Iran threatens Israel that if it continues its attacks in the Gaza Strip, Hezbollah will attack from the north, that's something that we have to take seriously, because we know that Iran is very much involved. We know that Iran leadership is also directly, personally involved in this combat, in this war. So yes, this is definitely a concern for us. We are ready. We stand ready. We also informed indirectly our neighbors to the north that Israel will react very strongly if any serious attack will emanate from those regions. And we have seen some provocations in the last few days, and Israel is reacting. But for now, the situation is stable, the northern front.
You mentioned Iran. You also mentioned the fact that you appreciate the support that you currently have from Canada. What else does Israel hope to get from Canada in this moment?
In this moment, we need the international community to do all it can to stabilize, to make sure that the fighting ends immediately, that Hamas military organization is dismantled, and this war does not escalate any further, because Israel will do anything it needs to defend itself. And I think this is the role also for the international community to convey that message. I think Canada is doing that, and we appreciate that, but I think it needs to be done by all countries around the world, forcefully and very clearly, because this is a very dangerous situation that we are facing right now.
Ambassador, I appreciate the time today. Thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.